Hey there, welcome to the program. Demonstrations against COVID-19 restrictions have spread now to cities across the country over the weekend. Let me show you a live shot of what Ottawa looks like at this hour. Not many protesters out of their vehicles yet, but those vehicles continue to block a large part of the downtown core as the city enters its 10th day, with truckers and protesters blockading many roads in downtown Ottawa. The police chief says the city is, quote, under siege. Additional RCMP officers have been brought in to help. I spoke with the Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendicino, on Friday about how the federal government is responding and what it can do. Nice to see you, Minister.
Thanks for having me.
So, Minister, maybe I will just start with the request by the Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, to have the RCMP join in and try and help. Can you give us a sense of what they are going to be able to contribute to this?
Well, I spoke with Mayor Jim Watson, who'd communicated that the Ottawa Police Chief had requested RCMP provide additional resources on the ground. And I was pleased to report after that conversation that indeed we fulfilled that request. So there will be more boots on the ground to lend support to the Ottawa Police Service, which is the police of jurisdiction, and we will continue to support as much as we can. I'm very concerned about the various reports that we've heard from Ottawa residents. You know, we've heard about threatening and intimidation and the spread of hate. We've seen Confederate flags and swastikas flying on the Hill. That's absolutely unacceptable. And so I do think it is appropriate that Ottawa Police has stepped up enforcement. I know charges have been laid. There are ongoing investigations, and they're surging their operations on the ground. And all of that is taken independently of the elected government. At the end of the day, 90% of Canadians are vaccinated. 90% of truckers are too. The Convoy can disagree, but they're not above the law, and there should be a peaceful resolution to this as quickly as possible.
Okay, so what is the peaceful resolution then? Is there anything more the federal government can do other than provide the RCMP resources?
Well, I think we are working closely with the city to look at providing some supports for those who've been impacted. I know that shops and businesses have been closed, and I know that those discussions are ongoing. As I said to you, I've certainly communicated to the mayor that we'll do whatever we can.
Let me just go back to what you said there about support. I know that there have been perhaps initial talks anyway about the federal government covering some of the policing costs, but are you saying that there could also be support for businesses that have been forced to close for a week and maybe will have to remain closed? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I know that those conversations have been ongoing between the city and the government, and then throughout the pandemic, we've tried to take as very generous and supportive as a position as we can. But at the end of the day, from the position that I serve in, I have to be sure that that we're offering the support to the Ottawa Police Service so that they can enforce the law. I have been very troubled by a lot of reports that I'm hearing about people not being able to get to work. Families not being able to drop their kids off at daycare, seniors and young women who have been threatened with harassment and intimidation and even rape. And that's unacceptable. And so we do need to see that the law is enforced. At the end of the day, we're a country that is based on the rule of the law. We can have vigorous disagreements about how to get out of the pandemic, but we have to abide by the law.
Is there any situation in which your government would consider meeting with any members of this protest, convoy, blockade, whatever you want to call it? Is there any situation where that would happen?
Well, I've heard the question put in different ways. So, will there be an olive branch? Will there be engagement? Rosie, we've been engaging Canadians throughout the pandemic. We put the question of vaccines and vaccine mandates on the ballot, and Canadians had a right to exercise their vote freely in the last election. And we're simply carrying out the promise that we made with the support of the vast majority of Canadians. Like I said, 90% of Canadians have taken up the cause, and so too has the trucking sector. And this was a convoy that was supposed to be about freedom. But now what we see is many individuals, and these are not isolated incidents, who are deliberately and wantonly stripping away the freedoms of ththose who are just trying to go about their daily lives. And that's not what Canadians do.
Sure.
We look out for each other. We follow the law.
And I understand that you are not, it is not part of your job to direct police, and certainly I don't think anyone would want government to do that. But it is your job and your government's job to provide leadership in moments like this. And I wonder if there is more outreach that could have been done, if not to the protesters, then to the city of Ottawa and the people that feel that they are being held hostage. I just wonder if there is a bit of a lack of leadership and communication from government when it comes to how this is going to be resolved?
I think that the leadership that Canadians are looking for right now is a level-headed, reassured government that follows science, that follows evidence to get us out of the pandemic. And unequivocally, that debate has been resolved. If you have received a booster shot, you are half as likely to get the Omicron variant. If you have received a booster shot, Rosie, you are 90% less likely to have to go to a hospital. And likewise, 90% is less likely to die. And the impact that is having on the front lines of our healthcare system cannot be lost. The bigger picture here is that, of course, we all want to get out of the pandemic, and we can all relate to that sense of frustration. But leadership calls for an adherence to that science, an adherence to that evidence, and yes, adherence to the rule of law. And we will always communicate that in the strongest possible terms.
But given that there is now a broader conversation, you could argue happening around the world, and certainly in this country in certain provinces, about removing restrictions, could the government be better communicating that this isn't going to be forever? I mean, ostensibly, we are not going to live with restrictions for the rest of our lives. Are you prepared to say those kinds of things so that, and do you think that would have any difference on what we're seeing outside?
Rosie, I've appeared on your show enough times now for you to know that there's a resilient and optimistic individual within. And look, there have been various stages of this pandemic, the highs and the lows. There have been moments where we have been able to ease up on the restrictions, and there have been other moments where we've had to tighten up. And always we have done that on the basis of the best advice that we've been given from our public health care officials. And we've always done it to protect the health and safety of Canadians. Those are the two North Stars that have served us well, and they will going forward. Do we want to envision a moment in the future where we're able to go back to life as normal? Yes, of course we do. And I'm confident that we will get there, but we have to follow the advice. And yes, we have to do it in order to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Has the police response been in Ottawa appropriate? Is that something you're willing to comment on?
Well, look, I know that the Ottawa police chief has been out there, and he has been communicating, and he has been explaining to the people of Ottawa the steps that are being taken to enforce the law. And I think that the residents have communicated a high degree of concern about what is going on in the streets. And, we've spoken about that already. What I can tell you is that from where we sit, we will do what we can. When I spoke with the mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, he'd said that the police chief had communicated to the RCMP a desire for additional resources. We've provided those resources. We will continue to support the Ottawa Police Service as much as we can so that people can feel safe.
The chief of police earlier in the week suggested that there had been some indication that there were weapons, perhaps, that being brought into the city. I don't know what intelligence you're getting about that, but does that explain, is that happening? And does that explain in part why there is a fear of escalation?
Well, again, I think we're all watching with concern the developments on the ground in Ottawa, and I think it is appropriate that police take the measures that are necessary to respond as they receive intelligence, as they see the conduct of those participating in the convoy in measure. At the end of the day, we have to respect the independence of those decisions. And what we can do federally at the governmental level is to keep lines of communication open, provide support as we have done. We have been there. We will continue to be there going forward.
Okay, Minister Mendicino, we will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosie.